This is Fox and Friends. All right, buckle up. It's 6 a.m. on the East Coast, and it's Friday, March the 28th, and this is Fox and Friends. Vice President J.D. Vance heads to Greenland today as Trump's takeover talks continue.
Meanwhile, Elon Musk put protesters on notice. That ahead of tomorrow's so-called Tesla takedown protest.
The people pushing the propaganda, those are the real villains here. And we're going to go after them. And the president's made it clear we're going to go after them.
And we're closely monitoring updates out of Buckingham Palace after King Charles is briefly hospitalized. A live report from the UK. Fox and Friends starts right now.
We will have accomplished most of the work required to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion within that time frame. We actually want to be careful in the cuts, so we want to measure twice, if not thrice, and cut once. Actually, that is our approach. They may characterize it as shooting from the hip, but it is anything but that.
Some people say this shouldn't take a rocket scientist. Steve Davis, you are a rocket scientist.
Used to be. That all of us are willing to kind of put our lives on hold in order to do. I think the thing that's special right now is we actually believe there's a chance to succeed.
We really believe that the government can have an Apple Store-like experience. Beautifully designed, great user experience, modern systems.
This was beautiful. You know, Rachel, you have multiple kids, so you know the boogeyman theory. They think something is under their bed, and they think it's very, and then you pull it out of their bed, and it's just a little toy. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened yesterday. We haven't seen their faces. And so the media and the Democrats have been saying, oh, this is the boogeyman. They're trying to take things away from you. These are accomplished individuals that love the country and want to make life better for the American people. They're trying to create a user-friendly government, essentially. And I love, my favorite quote was creating the Apple experience for these government workers.
Imagine, they were talking about creating that Apple experience in the context of the fact that they came in and said, we want to fix Social Security. And they're like, yeah, well, we can only do 8,000 cases, you know, a month. And then they said, well, that's because there's a mine. And they're like, what do you mean there's a mine? Or a day, I think. And then, what do you mean there's a mine? They thought it was like a symbol for something else. No, it's a literal mine. There's so much paperwork. Our government bought a mine, and they are doing everything by hand. And to your point, far from taking anything away, these guys are giving our money back. I mean, Brian, we're up on, we're really close to tax day, to when everyone pays their taxes. They take almost half of my money. When I saw what was going on, the amount of waste, the things that they said, they're finding $1 billion here, $1 billion there. You know, we heard about the $2 billion going to Stacey Abrams. This is so infuriating.
Yeah, I think when people say they do using buzz terms like he's going to cut your Social Security, no. He's reforming Social Security, get the fraud out. Now, I want to see what is actually in our three cuts, and then I'll respond to it after. The thing that struck me is these are dead serious people, no interest in politics, their version of service. That rental guy, that Airbnb guy, a multi-billionaire, he runs into Elon Musk at a party, and he says, can you help us out? He goes, how? And he said, can you start reforming some of our systems? Let me go take a look. And they see so many things that are ripe for reform. And the term that keeps on jumping out is care. It's almost impossible to care about taxpayer money like you do your own. It's not real. We don't know what was coming in, and we don't know where it's going. And it doesn't matter because it's not theirs. Listen more of what the Doge team had to say about their approach.
The sheer amount of waste and fraud in the government, it is astonishing. It's mind-blowing. We routinely encounter wastes of $1 billion or more, casually.
The first thing that got me really excited about Doge was learning basically the state of government computers. By some estimates, government IT costs about $100 billion. And it's funding systems that are over 50 years old.
The amount of issues that were the Social Security system are enormous. As an example, there are over 15 million people that are over the age of 120 that are marked as alive in the Social Security system.
Under the Biden administration, there was no departmental oversight within the Department of Interior whatsoever. None. We are now reviewing every single contract, every single grant.
There are in the federal government around 4.6 million credit cards for around 2.3 to 2.4 million employees. This doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so one of the things all of the teams have worked on is we've worked with the agencies and said, do you need all of these credit cards? Are they being used? Can you tell us physically where they are?
So the math is just not adding up. And you got these people that are respected business people in their own right. They don't need this. I mean, they're not getting paid that much. They're spending time away from their family and their own business, and it's causing all these attacks on Tesla. And the car itself didn't do anything. The people that are driving the cars didn't do anything. Here's Elon Musk on that.
Well, I think a great wrong is being done to the people of Tesla and to our customers. I mean, Tesla is a peaceful company that has made great cars, great products. That's all it's done. Hasn't harmed anyone. And yet people are committing violence. They're firebombing Tesla dealerships. They're shooting guns into stores. They're threatening people. They're issuing death threats against me and other Tesla personnel. What are they doing this for? Why? And what's happening, it seems to me, is they're being fed propaganda by the far left. And they believe it. It's really unfortunate.
And they're getting paid to do it, and they're making some arrests. But going back a little to what the Doge team did. So what they're trying to say is the buzz term that Democrats have been saying is they're cutting Social Security, they're cutting Medicare. No. The one thing that really struck me when he says 40% of the calls into Social Security are people trying to change their account to direct deposit. And I thought his next comment would be, because it's so complicated, you should be able to do this online. He said, no, it's fraudsters trying to get Mr. and Mrs. Jones's account, pretending to be Mr. and Mrs. Jones, calling up saying, can you deposit it here? Yeah. So you got other people just flat out fraud, and it's probably other countries. So what they're trying to do is keep more money in Social Security. It's going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Everybody knows it. And also, the computer system that we're running on, the computers can't talk to each other. So for example, it allows a 9-month-old to be able to get a small business loan because they just use the ID, because they're fraudsters, in order to apply for a business loan. But if they were hooked up to Social Security, they would have been registered on Social Security, and it would have stopped it. A 9-month-old doesn't need a small business loan. So these guys come in, probably for no money, and they sit there trying to tie the computers in like it's 2025, not like it's 1982. And they're getting nothing but blowback, as if now, instead of being prideful of what they're doing, not seeing their family and their 4 kids, instead they got to not tell everyone or their family what they're doing because it's been misrepresented. And I do blame the administration just a little bit because these guys didn't want any fame and fortune, any attention. Therefore, it sounds like everything was a secret.
Yeah.
That's what Lawrence was referring to. So you saw a combination of both fraud, massive, billions and billions of dollars of fraud, and then incompetence, using systems like pushing paperwork like we did in the 1950s with file cabinets and manila folders. You saw both that. But again, Elon Musk talking about the cars. I mean, there is no room for political violence.
No.
He says we're a peaceful company. I'll say this. What they're mad about, for the most part, is the fraud he's uncovering.
That's right.
They're mad because there was a money laundering scheme where, for example, I'm going to bring up the Stacey Abrams thing because I think it's really instructive.
$2 billion.
She had $100 in the account of this thing and suddenly gets an injection of $2 billion. For what? What is she doing? How did she get that? This has been going on for a long time. They're laundering money. If you want to protest Tesla, there are some reasons to protest Tesla that are noble. For example, I believe these electric cars make us more dependent on China for all of these minerals. You could talk about the cobalt mines in Africa that are needed to make these batteries, where 40,000 little kids are working in these mines. Those are noble reasons to oppose Tesla or the electrification of all of these vehicles and this movement. But uncovering fraud? No.
Go to the Prius dealership. How about that? That might be a good way to start. Just the electric car in general. This is a totally American company. And we're finding out, too, with the arrest that they're having, like this guy, Paul Kim, he got hit with arson, destruction of property, possession of explosive device. They're going back to communists and Palestinian movement, all working
all
together.
connected.
And when you go to your thing, Elon Musk keeps pointing us to the NGOs. They keep pointing us and saying they are making so much money, these NGOs, and they are taking them down. They're making them validate their existence. They can't do it, so it's all coming down. And when you take something away from people that are cheating the system, they have nothing to lose. And that's what we're witnessing. And I got to give Musk so much credit. He just stares straight ahead and he keeps going. He does a great job of masking his emotions. He only owns 15% of Tesla, people. You're not hurting him. You're hurting the different pension funds and different funds around the country that looked at Tesla as a solid investment. And now all of a sudden it looks like it not be a solid investment because of the massive attacks. Now, some 18-year-old who's got an electric car in a senior year in high school, the parents don't want to let her take it to school because it could be targeted on the street
It's also so
by some lunatic.
because Tesla's not taking a position. Elon is taking a position.
Right.
They keep comparing this to Bud Light, saying, "Oh, this is what you guys did." First of all, we didn't say
Nobody set Bud Light on
Bud
fire.
Light on fire. Number two, it was the company of Bud Light that took the position.
This is
It wasn't the owner of it doing stuff for the government.
I love that Brian brought up the NGOs again. When we were all looking at the border, what did we find at the bottom of this? NGOs making money. NGOs making the Catholic Church, Lutheran
Catholic
Church,
charities.
Catholic charities, Lutheran charities, Jewish charities, all of them.
And they don't want to let you in.
And they don't want to let you in. There's no transparency. What this is about is, as you said in the intro, pulling the curtain back, letting people look in and deciding, come April, when you pay your taxes, do you want to go into that? I don't think so.
I just wonder if there's any reasonable Democrats that could be brought into this process, like we just saw with Brett, no cameras, and say, guys, what you're protesting, what you're saying about cutting Social Security and cutting, it's just not true. Look at what we found. So I think that if there's reasonable people out there, and it's not Chuck Schumer because he's fighting for his life, like Ro Khanna was supposed to be on with us today, but he had a transportation issue. He has 20,000 people in his district work for Tesla. And also he knows Elon Musk for 30 years. So I'm curious to see if there's somebody reasonable on the left that they could start understanding what they're protesting and what they're backing is fraud. What they're protesting is finding out about that fraud. I dare you to watch last night and see politics. And I'm sure we're going to put it, I'm sure it's on foxnews.com. You click on special report, the whole show will drop down. You can watch it.
Meanwhile, across the pond.
That's right. King Charles III has canceled all of his events for today after being briefly hospitalized yesterday for, quote, temporary side effects related to his cancer treatment.
Alex Hogan joins us live from Buckingham Palace with the details. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Lawrence, Rachel, and Brian. So we know that King Charles III was taken to the hospital. He was briefly hospitalized. He was there under supervision before he was later released. And Buckingham Palace released a little bit of information about what we know at this point. So he was taken to the hospital after experiencing some side effects that he had experienced after his scheduled and ongoing medical treatment for cancer. All of his planned events yesterday were cleared from his schedule. The palace released a statement last night saying, quote, His Majesty has now returned to Clarence House and as a precautionary measure, acting on medical advice tomorrow, which is today's diary program, will also be rescheduled. His Majesty would like to send his apologies to all of those who may be inconvenienced or disappointed as a result. It was 13 months ago when the public first found out about the king's cancer, although it has still not been disclosed what type of cancer, what stage, or the treatment that the king is undergoing. And it's just the latest in a series of health concerns for the royal family. It was a year ago in March of 2024 that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, announced that she had cancer. 6 months later, Kensington Palace released another video where she shared that she had completed her chemotherapy. So some good news there. And the king has also been very active in his royal duties that we have seen ever since April of last year, continuing to hold appearances. We do know that he's had a busy week. He is eager to get back to some of that work, including a state visit that is scheduled to take place in Italy this week. Guys, back to you.
All right, we'll stay on top of that, Alex. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Alex.
All right, let's talk about the news. It was kind of stunning, but not yet surprising.
No.
If you look at the math in the House, they have such a small margin, 2 votes now, and if they win both elections in Florida, and it's not a given for Gates and Walz's seats, they'll have a 2-seat advantage. And it's just not enough to get things done, especially when you have Congressman Massey, who just doesn't want to vote for anything. So now you have Elise Stefanik sitting up in New York State, delay when it comes to a special election, and it forced Donald Trump to ask her something that I'm sure he did not want to do.
Yeah, the president has asked Elise Stefanik to step aside, to go back to the House, to be a part of the leadership again in some capacity. And I think it comes from the administration's view that they really don't need a UN ambassador right now as well. That they got Marco Rubio, they got Waltz out there, they got Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, and it's just not worth the risk. They got enough diplomats right here, and it's not necessary.
Well, there's no question Elise is a star in the party, and this is obviously a disappointment to her. My question is, do you guys think this is really, I mean, in addition to the raw politics of it, clearly it's a tight majority, but is this also like, hey, we don't need the UN? Is this a Doge move?
No, I think it's totally math, because you saw...
No, I mean, primarily it's math, but when you say in your statement, we don't really need to fill that position, they're not filling it with somebody else. What does that say about the UN?
Well, true. I think, though, that if they had a 15, 18 vote margin, she would have done it. She went through the process. She went through the confirmation process. She got through no problem. All she was waiting for a vote. And the Republicans said...
well, maybe it's time we look at the UN. I mean, we just had this huge segment on Doge. We fund primarily the UN. The UN does nothing for us, truly. And it's a very expensive proposition. Maybe,
but it can be career defining. I mean, Nikki Haley really defined that position.
Sure, career defining. But what does it do for not the individual person's career? What does it do for the country? And what does it do for the world? I'm not sure. I mean, listen, you talked about the NGOs. A lot of the money that was going, millions and millions, billions probably, that went through the UN refugee resettlement department in the UN was all part of this whole chain of illegal migration. They have been nefarious figures in our border crisis.
Yeah, here is Elise Stefanik last night.
I was honored to have earned that nomination by President Trump, and I'm proud to be one of his top allies on Capitol Hill. This goes back to fighting against the witch hunt impeachment. It goes back to being the first member of Congress who endorsed him, as well as leading the charge in so many ways to combat anti-Semitism, which of course he is taking action on today. I know the stakes as an elected representative for New York's 21st District and as a previous member of leadership in the House, that we need to secure the border, cut taxes, unleash American energy independence, and deliver these historic results on behalf of the president because of this tremendous mandate that the American people gave him. So I have been proud to be a team player. The president knows that. He and I had multiple conversations today, and we are committed to delivering results on behalf of the American people.
At least get her through 2 years, and then they'll probably get her something else.
I do think it's important to say that this is a representative that's putting country first over her own political ambitions. That's not typical for Washington. Everyone is worried about that. They want to all be president. And so they're trying to climb the ladder until they get there. This was a selfless decision, and good on her, because
the American people
it's tight in the House right now.
It is. I was just going to say, American people worked really hard to get Donald Trump elected and to do the things that we've been talking about all morning. And there was no, they don't want to risk that.
And you imagine, Rachel, if they lose the House. They're going to get nothing's going to get done for the final 2 years. Yeah. So to not lose the House, they have to accomplish something. To accomplish something, they got to get the votes. Yeah. You saw how the Democrats fell apart when the Republicans stayed together and did the CR with some amendments. They literally turned on their leader for the first time and started tearing each other's eyes out. Can you imagine if they do it with the one big beautiful bill, and then they could pass it with just 51 votes in the Senate?
It's true.
Well, let's turn to some sad news, and it's a Fox News alert. A powerful earthquake rocking Burma and rattling skyscrapers in Thailand earlier this morning. The 7.7 magnitude quake is being blamed for at least 2 deaths after a high-rise that was under construction buckled.
Chandler Painter joins us with the details.
Hey guys, so Thailand and Burma now declaring a state of emergency. The powerful 7.7 earthquake causing high-rise buildings to sway in Bangkok, the capital of Thailand. Here you can see the aftermath of a high-rise that collapsed in Bangkok. That collapse sent onlookers running for shelter and assessing the damage. Dozens of workers are reported missing. At least 2 are dead, according to the AP. The earthquake was forceful enough to send water sloshing out of pools. Alarms could also be heard going off, and scores of people were forced to evacuate down staircases in the densely populated city. The epicenter of the strong quake was neighboring Burma, which is in the middle of its own civil war. Video from the capital there show widespread damage, but so far it is still unclear how many casualties there are at this point. Reuters is reporting that at least 3 people have died after a mosque partially collapsed there. We'll continue following this for updates out of Southeast Asia as rescue workers continue to assess the damage. Guys.
All right, Chanley, thanks so much. All right, meanwhile, as we see what's happening overseas, we also have a lot going on here.
That's right.
Is there anybody you know that's prepared to tell anybody, just
think
at
about
the
it.
top of your head, pick out some name.
It starts with a C.
Tell us what the news is.
Ends with a S. Carly.
Is that what would my bat signal look like, guys?
I'm not sure.
A can of hairspray? I'll take it.
That would be better than a toss. You send your signal.
Yeah, that's
and
what we
just
should
stop
do.
talking.
Well, we do have even more news to get to, starting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is revealing how many anti-Israel protesters have had their student visas revoked since President Trump took office.
It might be more than 300 at this point. We do it every day. Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa.
You're saying it could be more than 300
Sure,
visas?
I hope. At some point, I hope we run out because we've gotten rid of all of them. But we're looking every day for these lunatics.
Well, that includes a Tufts University PhD student from Turkey whose visa was revoked after she was detained by ICE near campus. The Trump administration says she participated in pro-Hamas activities. Now to MLB opening day, starting off with rapper and actor Ice Cube delivering the World Series trophy to Dodger Stadium. Right before LA star Shohei Ohtani goes yard in the Dodgers' 5-4 win over the Tigers.
Shohei hits this one to left. It's carrying over the wall. He delivers again.
And to the East Coast, the Mets losing to the Astros with Juan Soto in his $765 million contract, ending the game without a strikeout. But the Yankees getting a win on opening day, taking down the Brewers 4-2, with some players finally debuting their beards. This after the team dropped a ban on beards after 49 years. Those are the headlines.
So better the team dropped the rule rather than the tram dropped
That was like a total Ron Burgundy move. I just read what.
Okay, but quick thing. It really bothering a lot of people that the Yankees had facial hair.
Really?
Carlos Rodon had facial hair. I mean, people are going crazy because you have a certain. It's almost like seeing like the Marines grow their hair out.
Yeah.
You know, you're just not used to seeing it.
I think people are worrying about the wrong thing.
I don't know. I think
we just worry about winning. That's it.
But I think it's the only thing that matters: facial hair.
Oh,
right.
Let me tell you something.
I really do
keep in mind.
You never know. You know what?
Yeah.
If the second floor decides no facial hair,
well, you know the second floor thinks I don't look like a kid when I have the facial hair.
Okay.
You know, so.
All right, stop using moisturizer. Right, that'll help. All right, just to look a little older. All right, work for Chris Chulo. Look how old he looks. Right.
He's out of control.
Vice President J.D. Vance set to become the highest-ranking U.S. official to ever visit Greenland. Why this trip matters. Secretary Kristi Noem will be wrapping up her trip to Central and South America with a stop in Mexico. Maddie Rivera is live in Washington with the latest. Madeline.
Hi, good morning, Brian. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is set to meet with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum today. This comes after Noem met with Colombian officials on Thursday. This is a shift in the two countries' relationship after a standoff between the U.S. and Colombia in January over deportation flights. Yesterday, Colombia and the U.S. agreed to share biometric data on migrants. Noem says that partnership will help Colombia stop criminals from crossing its borders.
We're committed to working hand in hand with our Colombian partners to enhance not only border security, but also that we will support the enforcement of our immigration and our criminal laws. We do appreciate the President and his team and the Minister working to facilitate the repatriation of Colombian nationals back to their country, and we'll continue to work on that as well.
Noam kicked off her trip by touring El Salvador's terrorism confinement center on Wednesday. The high-security prison holds deported Venezuelans whom the Trump administration alleges were Tren de Aragua gang members. But a D.C. appeals court has maintained a block on more deportation flights under the Alien Enemies Act. Although those flights remain blocked, several Border Patrol and military officials tell our Brooke Taylor the military is resuming removal flights in El Paso today. Deportation flights on military planes were suspended earlier this month. Right.
Yep, about 120 people getting out of here. Thanks so much, Maddie. 30 minutes now before the top of the hour. Vice President J.D. Vance set to join Second Lady Usha Vance in Greenland today, making him the highest-ranking U.S. official to ever visit the country, as President Trump continues to stress its strategic importance.
We need Greenland for national security and international security. I think we'll go as far as we have to go. We need Greenland. And the world needs us to have Greenland, including Denmark. Denmark has to have us have Greenland. I view it from a security standpoint. We have to be there.
So GreenMet CEO spearheading the private investment efforts in Greenland and former Associate Director of Policy to Vice President Pence, Drew Horn, joins us now. Drew, how real is this? What does America get from this, or what do we need from this?
Well, thanks for asking that. I mean, this is one of the most, I think, misunderstood issues and greatest opportunities that there is out there right now. So it's a fact that there's trillions of dollars worth of business development opportunity in Greenland, and that the U.S. investment and private community is dedicated to actually developing this. And I would say the undertold story here is that the Greenlanders overwhelmingly want this, right? And so you get a lot of misrepresentation of, the vice president's trip and a lot of efforts that I think are very positively received in the outskirts of Greenland, where the majority of the people live, by kind of a Danish narrative. But the reality is we need to have this alignment, and there's just tremendous opportunity.
So you said, we got zinc, iron, copper, nickel, cobalt, and uranium, rare earth elements that they need our sophisticated equipment to get out. Got it. But we keep seeing polls showing the people of Greenland want nothing to do with being taken over by the U.S. You were just there, and you say it's a different story.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these polls are not accurate and don't necessarily represent the true Greenlandic feel. So there's a saying in Greenland that Nuuk, which is where most of the Danish proxies live, is not really Greenland, it's Nuuk. And so I think that kind of states a lot of what you're hearing. The reality is that the Greenlanders overwhelmingly want independence. They overwhelmingly want alignment and support from the United States. They've been oppressed historically by, Danish colonialism. There's a really nasty, true story there. And so I think they're tired of it. Right now, there's just a manipulation of, I would say, a false Danish narrative to try and, cast the United States as sort of that easy bad guy. The reality is the people of Greenland openly want as much alignment and support from the United States and development as we're willing to give, and we're willing to give lots of it.
How do you know?
Well, I mean, the reality is I've spent the time traveling around the country, and unlike a lot of people in Copenhagen and other places, I've actually been to multiple places in Greenland. I've talked to people from the leadership to the business leaders to the people in various areas. They all overwhelmingly want to see their country develop and align with the United States as a natural neighbor and part of North America.
It's true. Why is J.D. Vance is not meeting with the leader of Greenland? Why?
Well, the Greenlanders have asked that they have a few weeks to basically form their alignment and their coalition as a part of their new government. You're probably aware they just had a very monumental new election. And so what they'd like is a few weeks to basically form things out and then to officially engage with us. And so I'm actually planning to go back there in early May. I will probably be inviting some of my friends and U.S. government leadership to join me. I believe that'll be the appropriate time to liaise with the new government.
Absolutely. When it gets a little warmer, you can actually
see
exactly. Drew Horn, thanks so much. Very curious to see where this goes. And Drew told me in the break, think Guam. Think the relationship we have with Guam, right? All right, thank you. Meanwhile, straight ahead, leftist protesters plan a global day of action against Tesla. How Elon Musk is responding.
And we're going to go after them. And the president's made it clear we're going to go after them.
On across the map, we have flooding over Texas and Louisiana. Next storm system moving into the west. Ice and snow for the northern plains and the Great Lakes, and the threat of severe weather really starts to ramp up tomorrow from Texas all the way up towards the upper Midwest. Bullseye for you in Tulsa up towards Kansas City. Sunday, that's when we could really see a severe weather outbreak across the Mississippi, Tennessee, Ohio River Valley. Some of the same areas that got hit hard 2 weeks ago with the tornado outbreak. And then that system moves across the Gulf, the Southeast, up towards the Mid-Atlantic, including you in Washington, D.C. So that's Monday. Have a way to get those watches and warnings. Winter weather alerts, I know, crazy, as well as an ice storm warning for parts of the Great Lakes. Look at the ice that is in the forecast here on the roads, on the power lines. This could be a significant event through Monday, not only for the Great Lakes, but in towards the upper Midwest and New England as well. So we'll continue to keep you up to date. Winter is not over just yet. Not for you in Texas, though,
We
Lawrence.
were done with this. But, Texas will hold it down.
That's right.
In the meantime. Thanks, JD.
You got it.
So, anti-Musk protesters prepare for a global Tesla takedown day of action tomorrow. Elon Musk is responding to the escalating chaos.
The real problem is not the people. It's not like the crazy guy that firebombs a Tesla dealership. It's the people pushing the propaganda that caused that guy to do it. Those are the real villains here, and we're going to go after them. And the president's made it clear we're going to go after them.
Here to react to all of this news, former Pennsylvania Congressman Patrick Murphy. Patrick, thanks so much for joining the program. We had one of our reporters on the ground there asking Democratic representatives what they felt about this. This is what they had to say, Patrick.
Can you tell us what you think about what's happening with the Tesla products, the violence at the dealerships? What's your take on the situation?
Sorry, I'm a little bit late here right now.
What's your take on it? Do you denounce the violence?
Why are people so upset when they see a Tesla in the parking lot?
I can't comment to that, in terms of public sentiment. So,
but do you think Democrats are to blame for why people are so triggered by this? Because
no, absolutely not.
Patrick, this whole scandal is kind of weird to me because most of the people that I know that drive Tesla are Democrats.
Right, Lawrence, and we got to make sure that we're clear that political violence has no place in our country, right? We have elections, they're over. He's a private citizen, he's doing what he can. I thought Brett Bart did a phenomenal job last night having him on. We can talk about that, but the reality is this: whether it was January 6th or whether it's bombing Tesla or spray painting or putting swastikas on, it's wrong. It is wrong. And they better not do it in my neighborhood. They better not do it against my family members.
Yeah. I think this also goes to the overall point of the temperature being high right now. The rhetoric is going crazy right now. You got representatives that are using profanity. I want to play this montage of some of the most recent examples from some of the Democratic officials. Let's watch.
And to see this administration claiming that it cares about competence and merit, and then be responsible for an epic like this.
What I repeat is that on the day that the person that should have been president had to deliver her concession speech, I didn't know it was going to be this bad.
When they go low, we go high, he can go
Liberal friends, they always tell me, well, what about Trump? I think the difference is when you talk about Donald Trump, he's being his authentic self. This is a new occurrence for the Democrats. So either they were faking before or they're faking now. But it's not consistent. I don't think people are buying it. Do you?
Well, listen, Les, I gave up cursing for Lent. I gave up cursing and ice cream for Lent. So, listen, no matter if you're Democrat or Republican, you got to be authentic, right? You got to be genuine. And I think that's why people are frustrated. And I think they're frustrated because you're seeing, the audio isn't matching the video. People are saying one thing and then doing another. And that's the real frustrating thing. And I think that's why people are standing up and saying, hey, what's really going on here?
Well, I hope they get it together because I like competition. I like a battle of the parties. I used to be a Democrat. I want them to go to the ideas that once inspired me. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing any hope right now, but we'll follow it, Patrick. I know you're a proud Democrat still. Thank you, sir, for joining the program.
All right. Thanks, Lars. Appreciate you, man.
You got it. So King Charles sent to the hospital amid a battle with cancer. What we know